almost its 30th day of December 2025. This is almost gone. But the memories of Fukushima will live on forever. I'm almost ready. I'm just going to throw up a song called Atomic Corruption. When that's over, I'll be good to go.
Built the plant in 53.
I'm sorry. Let me turn it down for you. I adjusted a few buttons tonight.
Pike and Portsmouth DOE.
Right back.
U-235 in the groundwater chain. Heavy metals drift with rain. They cracked the pipes, they dropped the shell. Still denied what tests could tell. Open air, no tent in place. Children sick, no public trace. Atomic corruption, filed it safe, never discussed. Paper trail burned to dust. You won't find what you won't trust. Atomic corruption, carried down the river bend. Across the state, you can't pretend. This don't poison in the end. Kids with cancer, no cause named. Dust in schools they never claimed. No swab, no test, no agency. Just buried deep bureaucracy. They said too costly to contain, but built a dud dump across the drain. Green up CO2, same report filed. The fish are gone, blame climate change. Atomic corruption, stamped and sealed, they walked away. Still the isotopes don't stray. Bound air, not bound to say. Atomic corruption, they marked 5 counties in the plan. Laughed at Kentucky's open land. Told us hillbillies won't understand. Technetium track 14 miles. Same as plant, same toxic file. Lawrence Livermore drew the lines, but DOE said never mind. Birth smell form, no press release. No study done, no state police. The river holds what they won't name. Atomic corruption, open air across the fields. Science told them never yield, but profit hides what power shields. Atomic corruption, it don't fade, it won't forgive. Still inside the lives we live. This is not a claim. Atomic corruption is.
Here we go. Hope you're ready. This is crazy. We're going to cover the same press club as we've been covering the last couple of days, with the government's official responses in the first days of Fukushima. And so there's some incredible revelations going on. I put a link into the description for that song, by the way. Excuse me. I'll drink some tea here in a second. We'll be up and running. So this was March the 16th. Now there is no March the 15th. It says March the 20th. The other one says March the 16th. Hang on a second. March the 16th. Does that make any sense? The health effects of Fukushima situation, there's a different one. The health effects, they didn't post it. Now, I looked in the usual suspects places to find the 15, but I didn't find it. I would imagine they pulled it down before I downloaded all of them. Of course, whenever you go to these links, they're expired. Like all the whales are emaciated. All the links are expired. All the evidence is long gone.
For the Fukushima Daiichi, the nuclear power.
And so his volume is going to be down. Translator, because he's speaking Japanese, the translator is talking over him.
Station accident. This was indeed the major
I'll adjust
accident.
the volume pretty quicker.
But what may be the impact to be felt by the
It's
general
really good
public?
tonight.
We need to be calm and level-headed
We need to
in
be calm
trying
and
to
level-headed.
understand what is happening. I don't think there is many opportunities for having such briefings. IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency,
Big shots.
on
Big
the
shots.
incidents to do with radiology.
So they invoked the International Atomic Energy Agency in the first minute. That's okay. So the reason my response is like that, International Atomic Energy Agency was talking in 2023 about recycling the 30 million one-ton bags of radioactive topsoil into for farms and everything else. Excuse me. This is Anna Clark with International Atomic Energy Agency at that time, 2023. And they'll always put a disclaimer of some form or another. This is one of the better disclaimers. The International Atomic Energy Agency is not a regulator. Now, I didn't Photoshop this or anything like that. I know what the industry is saying out there. And therefore, the IAEA is not a regulator, and they're not in a position to judge or approve Japan's soil recycling project. So forget about that part. They're not a regulator and not in a position to judge or approve anything. Water, reactors, fuel, new plants, nuclear sites. They're not a regulatory agency. The media portrays them, the 195 signatory military-industrial complexes. It's 195 militaries. So they're not a regulator, so they shouldn't be invoking him, but they're going to come up with a cover story, and 195 countries will regurgitate it, and so will the rest of the planet. Japan gets UN nuclear watchdog approval for water release, and adding that Japan would have the final say on the releases. Again, the International Atomic Energy Agency is saying they're not a regulatory agency, right? So when they were giving them this approval, gives you a stamp of approval, there's the picture, UN flag, Japan's flag, Prime Minister Rafael Grossi, you must be official. Well, that's pretty official. It's NBC, then. It's up on everything. All the media is covering it. But you forget that they're not a regulatory agency. Just because they're on a pedestal don't mean they're a regulatory agency. And they should be given that prominence if they're not, should they not? They assure the safety of the water release, really. And think about that later tonight. But Grossi emphasized they're not liable, you can't sue them, in the International Atomic Energy Agency report that its document is not a recommendation or an endorsement. The Japanese government has the final say. Not the nuclear industry, but the Japanese government. Even worse. Because the worst case scenario is when the government shows up and says, "Hi, we're the government. We're here to help." You're in the worst case scenario now. Because anything that comes into play is industry. They have to go ask the industry what do they want them to tell this story. And so you got the whole planet needs to regurgitate that story for decades. And that's what they'll do. International Atomic Energy Agency is not a regulator, not in a position to judge or approve its soil recycling project, or their water, or their nuclear plants, or their dumps, or their emissions, or their incinerators, or their contamination of the food, or the hospitals, or anywhere else, your smoke detectors. Impossible high, World Health Organization, by the way, initial report estimated Tokyo and Osaka infant thyroid doses were 10 to 100 millisieverts. It's 10,000 to 100,000 microsieverts, up to a full sievert in Nami. These are absurd numbers. 7 miles away, downtown Nami, which was abandoned for about 7 years. Why the hell would you go back? How do you get that stupid? I watch TV, Dana. Oh,
the seriality, the seriousness of the radiology incidents have been classified. 7 for the Chernobyl
was a big
incident.
boy.
And for 3 Mile Island incident, 5 were the...
So Chernobyl was a 7. Chernobyl was a small reactor. It was a new reactor. It was 2 years old. It was using graphite. Fukushima reactors are massive. They're 30 plus years old. You have 5.5 reactor cores at the top of the buildings each decade stored. Japan doesn't, or Chernobyl don't have storage pools. It was a new reactor. I'll get it clear. You got to give me a minute. So Chernobyl was a tiny reactor. I'll show you a comparison in a second. Actually, I'll show it to you right now. There's Chernobyl, and here's one of Fukushima's reactors, which officially this never happened, by the way. So I got to keep that in the equation in every sentence that they use. Chernobyl was terrible. They closed 9,400 farms in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom. I'm not saying it's not terrible. There's orphanages and orphanages and orphanages of deformed and congenital malformations, holes in their hearts, incredible heartbreak, and a lot of the kids are not even recognizable. They're so disfigured from the radiation. Mutations, and that's common in all pro-nuclear countries. So when you're looking at these, I'll get it away. When you're looking at these two buildings, you got to realize the one to the right had 8 more reactor cores at the top of the building. So each of those 4 reactors in Japan has that particular attribute. Don't worry, I'll tell you 500 times more before the night is
classifications. And JCO's the accident several years ago, level 4 was given.
So 3 Mile Island was actually really bad, but it was covered up just like Fukushima. And the same people were involved in the cover-up, by the way. Lake Barrett, for instance. Tokyo's sample has radioactivity levels higher than in Chernobyl, by the way. And there's a very, very high levels of contamination in Tokyo. This happened within days. So this is on the 16th video. So by 16th, all 4 of these reactors and the fuel pools, you're talking about 36 reactor cores, have gone poof. And they're headed out to poison every species, all 8 million species, within 20 days.
So JCO's the incident that happened with a very sloppy
incident.
Operation.
The Roku, was it?
That it had the very primitive the way and mode of an operation in trying to handle the uranium using funnels. So that was the accident that happened several years ago. Now there were 2 deaths.
Because somebody there's probably said it in the lunchroom, and they said, well, hell, we can do that. You know, it was so bad, Japan considered moving the capital away from Tokyo, as she's saying everything is okay. I think it's more her than it is a him. His job is... there's something about her that tells me she's not naive or gullible. She knows exactly how to emphasize the enormity or to downplay the enormities.
The workers And they passed away at the University of Tokyo Hospital, and I had experience of treating those two the fatal patients. Now, the accident that happened at this time, as compared to the 3 Mile Island accident, there's a similarity between the two.
Sorry, that cracks me up every time. Chernobyl was a new reactor. It was a small reactor. It was a graphite reactor. It didn't have any reactor cores at the top of the buildings. Each of these had around 8 reactor cores. Each of those reactor cores are pure uranium, pure plutonium. So you're talking about a 100-to-1 ratio. You're talking about a 100-to-1 ratio. Just hang with me. We'll get her done. Excuse me. It's a complicated subject as it is, right? And that's why the laws are so effective. That's why the laws are so effective. I forgot what I was doing now because I was yakking. Wait, I'll remember. Go backwards. Let's keep going.
The workers. And they passed away at the University of Tokyo Hospital, and I had experience of treating those two the fatal patients. Now, the accident that happened at this time, as compared to the 3 Mile Island accident, there's a similarity between the two.
3 Mile Island, they said there was 2 million people got irradiated, but it was equal to watching a color television for an extra year. You got 4 reactors, 36 reactor cores total at the top of the buildings. It's a 100-to-1 ratio. That's what I was looking for, according to Russia. But of course, when you look at the science of it, then you're stuck with the reality. You're stuck with the reality. Crap, man. It's like getting a telephone book thrown at you. Hang on. Oh, here we go. I got one of the versions. I don't know which one it is. Hopefully it's not the long one. There's a link below to the presentation that we're covering tonight. This is RT, just after Fukushima, described the difference between Chernobyl and Fukushima.
The fact that the reactor in Japan is 100 times more powerful than the one in Chernobyl, and in fact the two stations, the two power plants in the Fukushima region produce the world's biggest joint amount of energy, and this means of course that this reactor, which is under threat now, is far more powerful than the one in the 4th block of the Chernobyl nuclear power station, which exploded 25 years ago.
Well, like, there's 8 reactor cores at the top of Fukushima buildings. Because they're pure plutonium, uranium versus graphite from Chernobyl, it's a 100-to-1 ratio. They're massive reactor cores, too. The problem was, at the top of the building, this was day 1, day 2, basically, reactor 1 disintegrated. That plume you've seen is the fuel. There's nothing at the top of these buildings to create that much of a mess, right? Let me just point that out for you. Because that's kind of important. I'm assuming that half the people don't know the facts of Fukushima, so they're not going to be working, being able to work out the law quite as readily as you can if you're looking at the evidence, right? So you see behind, all of these people are pretending they're at 150 feet above the stump of reactor 4, which never melted down. It just went away. All 9 reactor cores. So this was 2014. This is just some of the media. This is ABC Australia, Cecilia Vega. That's just some of them. Are pretending they're way above it, but America has 70 identical reactors. And so look behind them, right above their head is the roof. So there's nothing there to create that. And what you notice with that when you see the videos is, and you'll see it coming up, is it seems to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And because it's fuel particulates and they're splitting atoms, they're replicating over and over and over every second. This doubles, triples every few seconds. And because there's so many particles and there's such volatile... I got a better way to explain it to you. So hang on, I'll get it for you right away. Boom. Think about, this was TEPCO's numbers. This is not based on the stuff I showed you. Officially, none of that happened, right? Officially, that never happened. And that happened the day before. Or, no, that happened that day. I'll show you, give you this picture, actually. That's what it looked like the day they're given this report. And that's what reactor 3 looked like on the 14th. This one is the 16th, and the video is on the 16th. So this is what they looked like. Nothing changed for about a year. And then they had a lot of homeless people gathered up, and they went to work.
So at this moment in time, it is similar to 3 Mile Island incident. But
so at this moment, it's equal to 3 Mile Island. So at this moment, it is equal to 600 3 Mile Islands. And Santa Susana was 460 times worse than 3 Mile Island, by the way.
So at this moment in time, it is...
neutron beams were seen 13 times. That's March the 23rd it came out. But this, think about the explosion. Think about Medusa, reactor 3, the plutonium X-oxide reactor. That's the explosion of it. There was 9 reactor cores getting injected out of the building. I'll show you the videos coming up.
There's a difference. The difference is...
I got to fix the volume. Just bear with me. That one. So there's 4 of these buildings lost their entire inventories, which is around 8 to 9 reactor cores at the top of each of the buildings. There's 2 fuel pools.
There's a difference. The difference is...
radiation forecasts can by no means be released to the public. That was the order ever since. Showed radioactive cloud could spread over Tokyo. But remember what happened was it covered the planet in just 20 days. Neptunium, by the way, 239, decays to plutonium-239 in 2.5 days. That should make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside a bit. So how much was at the top of the building? This was Frank von Hippel on the 16th. He was with the Pentagon or the White House for a number of years during one of the administrations. He's a nuclear expert and now a professor. They're going to ask him how many reactor cores were stored at the top of reactor 4. Remember, all the reactors are identical.
And if, in terms of what we know about the capacity, about how many fuel rods would likely be inside that reactor, what sort of quantity are we talking about radioactivity?
I've heard different numbers, ranging from 2 to 15 reactor cores worth. No, 2 to about 8 reactor cores worth.
So if it can't be controlled, that's worst case scenario, 8 reactors worth of radioactivity.
Right. Right.
And it would be released into the atmosphere.
By the way, the fact that this has happened at unit number 4 is understandable and is consistent with the theory that it really did dry out. because the fuel from the unit number 4 was most recently discharged, and therefore was the hottest, and therefore the water would have boiled off more rapidly.
More rapidly. So he's saying, say, 8 reactor cores at the top of the buildings. What happens is every 12, 14 months, they're going to take out a third of the reactor core. So every 3.5 years or so, it's a reactor core or more. Well, what happens is they do 12,000 maintenances, actually. So the reactor might stay down for a lot longer. They might have to, once you get through 3 or 4 cycles of fuel, 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road, they bring in 1,000 people for fuel change. There's 12,000 plus maintenances goes on at the same time, right? So it's complicated. It works out to about 5.5 reactor cores a decade. So in that case, it would be 15 plus reactor cores at the top of each of the buildings. Chernobyl was a small reactor, was a new reactor, was a graphite reactor. It didn't have decades of reactor cores at the top of the buildings like Fukushima didn't. Government hid the radiation simulation because it was very, very bad. Very bad. Oh dear. Showed a serious contamination over a wide area. Remember that Neptunium-239 plume? Count the plumes tonight that I show you. Different isotopes. That didn't work.
There's a difference. The difference is the number of reactors is quite many.
Again, Sorry,
there
folks.
are 6 reactors in the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station. So in terms of volume, it may be the bigger, but
Okay. This is on the 16th. Don't forget that. Let me put them over here so I can... Because that's the only one there that looks like that in my pile. Here, okay. So, this is the common spent fuel pool. Everybody say, hi, common spent fuel pool. Hi. Common spent fuel pool said to say hi to everybody. I said hi to everybody. Behind it, you're seeing transport truck containers stacked up from the tsunami that ran right through it. This is the common spent fuel pool. It stores decades of reactor cores from all 6 of the reactors. Reactor 1, Reactor 2, you'll get it, right? Reactor 3, Reactor 4. Reactor 5, Reactor 6, just in case, you never know. Somebody might have too much coffee, can barely... So the question was, why was that pixelated out? That was on the same road. It's right across the street from Medusa, also known as Reactor 4. It's right across the street from the last reactor up, which happened to have Reactor 3 and 4 right across the street from it. Right? And so the last one up there, you can see a little tunnel up there, that's Reactor 4. The one with the smoke rising straight up, the radioactive murder material. If you swing through that with a Tarzan rope, you'll be dead before you come out the other side. And right across the street over here, this way, is the common spent fuel pool. And for some reason, these pictures were released in 2021. Nobody's ever covered this, only me. And so I think it's extra important because it was from drones. It was no explanation. It was released to TEPCO's website. And it was 736 mystery pictures, I called it in my last video about it, where I go through each of the pictures. And when I started zooming in, I was noticing all the reactors were pixelated. And the common spent fuel pool beyond Reactor 4 east of reactor 4 and 3. So on the way down to reactor 6, this is just before you get to the dry cask storage. So there's the dry cask storage. Just above that picture up there, it looks like this. Now remember, the damage to that happened here too, but this was built to take that shot, so to speak, right? To survive the hit. But why would you put the dry cask storage right by the ocean? My goodness. Because you can't see the ocean, but the ocean is right. It's right there. You'll see it in other pictures maybe when I'm zooming back. It's right here below me, right here. You can see those two barrels behind me. Let me get out of the way. You might even see an edge of it. No. Well, it was right below where we're on to is the dry cask storage. And you're headed north. And up there is reactor 5 and 6. So the question is, why is the turbine building reactor 6 and the roofs and the venting stack for the fuel pool, because the fuel pools are always splitting atoms anyway, so they just vent it out like a good little pet monsters would do. Why is reactor 6 pixelated out? These pictures were released on the 10th year, just before the anniversary. It was released in January. I found it on a Chinese site. I translated it, and there was TEPCO's links there, so I went over there, and here I started downloading these pictures. And I was like, oh, crap, let's find out what this is. It was 736 pictures. This is the common span fuel pool. Why was that pixelated out? So you have reactor 3 and 4 right across the street, in the immediate vicinity, and just over the next 200 feet is reactor 1 and 2. They're all melted down, 2 at the same time. So you had all 5 of these melt down. I would imagine that's what's going on, because this had windows, this was lower, the tsunami ran right through, it stacked up the transport truck containers behind it. Why else would you pixelate everything out? And the reactors were mostly pixelated out too. That's the common span fuel pool. Why does it look like that? Why did they release those? This is the reactors right here. That's reactor 4 there, and that's what I mean by it's right across the road. And behind me is reactor 3. And so both of them are immediately across the street. Now, reactor 3, when it detonated, and reactor 4 obviously detonated, right? You can see in better shots of them there. So when reactor 3 detonated, look at this here. You lost a huge, I'll show you better pictures coming up. 3/4 of the reactor core was ejected out of the building. That was turned into projectiles. So what you're looking at is projectiles. And you can see a lot of it's coming straight back down. And of course, it's not going straight up. It's falling back down. We're going to watch the video right now. Right, and so right across the street from that is the common spent fuel pool. And this is decades of reactor cores. You're talking around 6 million pounds. There's, several million pounds coming back down in that vicinity. And what's in that vicinity? Oh, the common spent fuel pool. So these are very volatile when they have no water. So they catch fire immediately. And what that means is when they get into another building, or they'll ignite, they're going to burn at multiple 1,000-degree Fahrenheit temperatures. And they'll melt through anything to get to anything below it, which is the common spent fuel pool is storing reactor cores from all 6 reactors. So it's an easier target than a spent fuel pool at a building, for instance, right? Because it's so much. And because these are old reactors, they have decades of inventories. They don't have a repository anywhere on the planet, let alone in Japan. It's pretty prudent to consider. that they knew that when they were given the press conference, by the way.
So the reactor core was exposed, and you would be able to see the core.
The reactor core would be exposed like that. You'd be able to see. Well, you couldn't see it because you couldn't get near it, first off, because that's lethal doses. Just let me... I have such a hard time. I'm going to do all the volume. And then the last one, I'll readjust it. I don't know why that changed on me.
So the reactor core was exposed, and you would be able to see the core from above. So the radioactive material will leak freely. That was the case of the Chernobyl incident. But right now, for the Fukushima accident, although there is some leakage, it is not in a major scale if you compare with the Chernobyl.
Not in a major scale. No! My data's fear mongering. Authorities hid the radioactive plume, as you're hearing, obviously, forecast to avoid evacuation. That's what she's doing there, right? It's akin to murder. I have to agree with her. And you have the death penalty in Japan. When are they going to use it on these people, I wonder? Who deserves it more than the people in the nuclear industry anyway? There's no serial killers can match any of these people. 6 in 10 Fukushima children tested have diabetes. So they were hiding because they knew this was going to happen. They headed to Tokyo Area Medical Clinic, even said, we're expecting diabetes in children from Fukushima radiation, but I bet you weren't expecting 6 in every 10 children.
Incident. Now, having said all these, what may be the effect on the human bodies, the human beings?
So this is on the 16th, the Foreign Press Club. Whenever you're watching these videos, remember foreign. It's meant for the foreign TV land. As long as you got 2 armpits, you can get in there. Let's put it that way. Wall Street officials said officials sharply raised the radiation levels for the victims to get iodine pills, which is not really going to help, but it's going to help something, but it's not going to... You're still getting radiation in your body. You're still going to radiate your thyroid gland. You're going to be producing radioactive hormones for the rest of your life, like all the species are doing now worldwide. They raised it 75 times higher than the World Health Organization recommends for children. 75 times higher. This was done right away. And they're telling you that everything is just unbelievable. The drinking water on day 2, day 3, 2 days before this video she done that video, or not she, but the esteemed doctor. Tokyo drinking water unsafe for infants. Government is distributing bottled water. So they pulled back on that within 24 hours or something, because people are starting to look up stuff on the internet and they're shitting in their pants, right?
Like had to divide into 3 factors. But roughly speaking, it would be 2 factors, but if you go into more of a technical detail.
So they sacrificed 36 million people in Tokyo. I'll explain that to you. I got a really neat way to
there will be 3 different factors. First of all, the person who will be the exposed victims would be the workers of the Tokyo Electric Power, the TEPCO.
Well, first off, there's not very many people. You had a tsunami run through the site. The other problem was you had 4 reactors detonate. What are you going to do there? You're going to be there for thousands of years working. Do you really think people were there when it was the worst? Just after it exploded? Do you really think there's people fucking running around? Are you really that naive and gullible? Melt your organs. You know, I was putting the other video together of the press release for the 17th, because I was going to do this. I didn't want to tackle this one because it's a lot of work, right? But as I started working at it today, I was like, you know, because I was getting it ready for my next show, which is not going to be until Sunday, because tomorrow is New Year's Eve. I'm not going to do that to anybody. I don't get out and enjoy yourself. Try to have a good time.
Those specially trained the workers who are able to be qualified to handle the radioactive materials. Those workers.
There's no one qualified to handle radioactive material at that place. Hey, I'll give you an extra $1,000 to go over stand up by that lamp. Sure, boss. I'll pay you in lunchtime. Square cash. Use cash, yeah, cash. Okay, I'll do it. And a lot of that going on for years. There's 16,000 employees running away from that place. Excuse me. Because it's like a banana and a potato chip, or in the sunshine. Sleeping next to somebody, something like that. 16,000 workers quit. Severe working conditions. I said, yeah, no. Severe. Doesn't get much more severe than that.
Those specially trained the workers who are able to be qualified to handle the radioactive materials. Those workers.
That piece of shit, right? Because he knew reactor 1 blew up, he knew reactor 3 had blown up, and he knew reactor 4 and 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 had blown up. Let me transfer that down here so I can find it. That was one blown up, right? Yeah, okay. This is the 16th. This is the same day. Boy, they were given that press conference we're going to be going through. This one was playing out on national TV, on C-SPAN in the United States. They were waiting for Gregory Jasko to show up. And so they had Bill Bouchard, I think it is. And Bill's typical response was, take the Fifth Amendment, is basically the best way to put it. But his job is to inform you. So I highlighted what his job is by using Senator Barbara. She puts him on a pedestal. Well, your job is to do this, and your job is to do that. And his answer is always, well, I don't really want to talk about it. It's the strangest thing you've ever seen because, there's 4 people appointed to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission for each administration. And a very prestigious job. And the nuclear industry is more important than 8 million species any day of the week. That's what the takeaways from all of this. I'll get it away. Here we go.
We're here to get a briefing on the ongoing crisis associated with the nuclear power plants in Japan. I'm very privileged that we have the executive director for operations at the NRC here, Bill Borchardt.
I couldn't speculate on that.
An expert, a true expert as well.
Again, I wouldn't wish to speculate.
So we feel very blessed that you could come and stand in until the chairman comes, and we really do welcome you.
Again, I can't speculate.
Well, teaching all of us the lessons that we have to take away from what is happening.
I couldn't speculate on that. What we believe is a significant amount of fuel damage in the 3 operating reactors, units 1, 2, and 3, which were operating at the time of the earthquake. and then because of the spent fuel problems that are in Unit 4
Right.
of that reactor facility. All of those factors taken into combination, if that same type of source term, that same type of radiological problem existed in the United States, our recommendation to state governments would be to evacuate
Okay.
out to 50 miles.
Well, that's a really good point, because I'm asking you, do you know how many people live within 50 miles of San Onofre nuclear power plant?
I do not know.
Well, I'm going to tell you how many people. 7.4 million people.
So why should he know? He's just the nuclear commission. That's just his job to know. He knows nothing. And she put him on a pedestal. You're the expert. You're God. You're our God. And Bouchard, he stalls and stalls and stalls for each one.
At the nuclear power stations, in a time of emergency like this, 100 milli sievert,
I like her.
up until that limit, they
want a
will
neighbor
be
or
allowed to be exposed. That is to say, that is the maximum limit. Sievert is a unit which is often discussed, and perhaps I need to explain this. Sievert, as a unit, is when a
When you get 1/3 of a lethal
radioactive
dose.
effect is felt by the human body. 1 over 10,000, that is to say, 1 over a million is 1 microsievert.
1/1,000,000th of a sievert is the microsievert. 1,000
Now, for
is
the
a millisievert.
operators, the maximum limit, allowable limit I mentioned earlier, is 100 millisievert. Now, then what about us?
Over a year, even that's a huge dose.
Now, we often use the word being exposed or not being exposed. This is nonsensical as a terminology.
This is nonsensical as a terminology. I smell something bad. Something bad is about to happen. Let me get myself set up here. Now, it's important to remember that they admitted later the deadly Fukushima meltdown was a cover-up. We lied about the meltdown. He admitted that later. It was a cover-up. TEPCO's president. It's a grave issue. It's not precedented nuclear disaster. As bad as it gets. It's a non-pardonable breach of trust.
There's nobody who will not be exposed at all. Everyone is exposed.
Oh, no, not that. I'm afraid to say those words, but hang on.
All of you who are in this room are also exposed, because there are radiology coming from the outer space and also in the air, like radon,
Like rabbits.
which is always contained in the atmosphere.
Yeah, the nuclear apologists, came out after 60 million people were irradiated, 50,000 square miles is highly contaminated. Well, what about North America? Many millions need to evacuate. You should evacuate past Osaka, 600 miles south. The reality of it that came out was it was a never-ending disaster. They were just stumbling helplessly from one crisis to the next. They weren't even on site. You couldn't hog tie a nuclear scientist and get him on that site.
And also from the
break
earth,
free, I guarantee
from
you.
the ground, soil, is...
He might be a chicken neck his whole life, but he would break free. Just hang on a second. He'd be like, "No, I'm not going. You can't make me. No." Hey, let me. Hang on. I know. Let me get. Let me somebody here to explain how the IAEA, how all the radiation protection agencies actually work. I think there's a bit of flavor there that everybody. I know my regular people might hate me for playing the video, but we're a small group and you should cherish us. Remember that? Kathleen Higley's on the podium. You got the one-armed bandit, and up by the NRC lady with the weight on, to the right of her is Miles O'Brien, the one-armed bandit. You got TEPCO, the Fukushima Reactor Force Perfect. You got Kyle Vetter from Berkeley, California. But she's going to explain to you who makes the rules and regulations for your schools, your hospitals, for your loved ones that don't have a very high survival rate in the hospitals, for instance. Who's making those rules for nuclear accidents, for your food, for your water, for your air, for your community? Who's making that rules? These are the most parasitic, revolting people you'll ever meet, and you're about to meet.
When I'm trying to pull this talk together, not only will I...
Just people remind anybody new here, I'm pretty good at catching the volume, and so don't panic every time and get upset with me. We've been at this for so long, that happens sometimes.
Sort of get a little philosophical about the impacts and the like and try to put things in context. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about who are these radiation experts that get trotted out
scumbags
in events like this, or that get to participate in various
your enemy number one
activities and analysis to make pronouncements about is something safe or not safe. And if you look, you'll see organizations that are often represented, the ICRP, International Commission on Radiological Protection, a premier organization. You'll see UNSCEAR and IRPA. So UNSCEAR is the United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation. IRPA, the International Radiation Protection Association. The IAEA and some of its folks, the International Atomic Energy Agency. Our own US NCRP. And then there are a number of other organizations. So there's PAHO, there's the Health Physics Society, there's World Health Organization. All of these will bring in, as necessary, experts to speak to you on issues related to radiation protection, radiation safety, and impacts. But if you go a little deeper and you start looking at these organizations, the ICRP, for example, very well known, it's been operating nearly 100 years, not quite. Main commission, 10 people. It's got 5 standing committees, so it's 100-ish folks. I lead one of the 5 committees. If you look at the United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation that looked at the effects from Chernobyl, from Fukushima, from other areas, and that has about 30, roughly, countries that are represented in that group. If you start teasing through these pictures, you're going to see the same people on every one of those organizations. So the same people from ICRP are on UNSCEAR, they're in IRPA. If you look at the NCRP, again, the US organization that advises the country on radiation protection issues, it's 100 people, a lot of gray-haired 100 people. And most of them are part of UNSCEAR, are part of IRPA, are part of ICRP, participate in IAEA. So the result, or the real world, is that there's not that many folks that really do radiation safety, radionuclide transport, dose calculations, all of this in the world. It's a pretty small club, and we wear 20 hats. Today I put on 3 pins, and I could put on a whole bunch more, but Health Physics Society, ICRP, Certified Health Physicist, I've got NCRP on there, I've done IAEA, and so the point is, we're a small group, you should cherish us. So,
you should worship the ground you walk on. Why not? Elder students do, right? That's why they got that attitude, because that's who they are at the universities. They bully the students, and students under all this pressure now. Excuse me.
And also from the earth, from the ground, soil, is always the radiation. And in your food that you eat, there is the radioactive.
Well, that's a great question. It's important, actually. So, which brings up another point. So natural radiation doesn't cause heart problems, liver problems, lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, thyroid, adrenaline, Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes, Down syndrome, schizophrenia, etc., etc., etc. You know what I mean? So for the doctor, right, to take the low road by saying something like that, because that's what he's doing. He's traveling the lowest road. Tokyo government finds iodine-131 levels up to quadruple cesium levels in the water reclamation centers. Let me run it by you again. So they found 131 levels. There's 10 times more 132 for every iodine-131 created. There's 30 times more iodine-133 for every 31 that's created. And there's 31 times iodine-129 for every one iodine-131 created. The iodine-132 and 133 are 9 times more effective at ionizing and radiating the thyroid glands of all the species compared to the incredibly effective iodine-131. And that's just to start. These, all the species ends up with permanent, because you're talking about the thyroid gland and proximity to will do the same damage. But unfortunately, there was so much of it. There's just so much of it. Now, this is the water reclamation. So this is the sediment for the water filtration facilities for the communities and cities. This was Tokyo in particular. You also see the same application, 50,000 tons of radioactive sludge. We're only looking at cesium. We're not looking at the absurd amount of other, the biggest byproduct of the radioactive fuel rod is curium isotopes. I'll get to that actually maybe in a bit. Nearly 50,000 tons of sludge in July, 1,557 tons in 5 prefectures, Fukushima and Miyagi, that they wanted Tokyo or the TEPCO to take possession of, because they couldn't get rid of it because it's too radioactive. So these communities should have been abandoned immediately. All of these people should be suing the nuclear industry for reparation from poisoning. So let me appreciate how whacked out this actually, why they were telling you.
And also from the earth, from the ground, soil.
They're telling you radiation is natural. And cesium was incredible numbers, by the way. 1,500 tons was also, so you had from Tokyo all the way to Fukushima, the sewage, radioactive sludge, the water was too radioactive. You couldn't get rid of the garbage because it was so radioactive. You couldn't get rid of the ash because it was so radioactive. The air, 150 kilometers from Fukushima, was as radioactive as close to the meltdown. High levels of radioactivity. The air samples in Tokyo were 270 times more contaminated than cesium-137 on the same day that this doctor, or this horrific creature, whatever is the most appropriate way to call it, I would imagine, was telling you those lies. The sewage plants, 10 out of 12 sewage were incredibly radioactive because of recriticalities or ongoing nuclear meltdowns at Fukushima. Radiation around Fukushima originally on the 2 days before this, nearing levels where humans vomit uncontrollably and the hair could be stripped from the body. These are lethal doses. This is what he evacuated. This is what he had to shelter in places. It was an absolute horrific event going on. Highly radioactive sewage, 334,000 atoms per kilogram of excrement is absurd. But you've seen the water reclamation facilities, for goodness sakes. You're showering in it, you're cooking your food in it, you're washing your clothing into it. And it's incredibly radioactive. And it's not just cesium. There's 12 million yen to censor Twitter being spent by the city. 12 million yen. It's like $70-something thousand today. US dollars to just for this one city because the protesters were getting sick, their nose wouldn't stop.
Potassium, which is also a kind of radiation. So you are eating.
You are eating. Potassium, I got to go away. Hang on, I'll find it. It's better just to grab it. And yep, there we go. Excuse me. Cesium-137, 88 curies per gram. Curie is 30, I can't remember. My goodness, what the hell is going on here? 37 billion atoms. Strontium-90, there's 140 times 37 billion. So Becquerel, which is a pulse of energy, you need a physical isotope to do. Just the layman's terms, we'll call it the atom. The almighty atom, splitting the atom. It's the isotope that is causing the energy, right? And atoms can have many different types of isotopes in a very small area, right? 37 billion decays, and they're not really decays, they're explosions, because these decays could take billions of years, so calling it a decay is kind of stupid. It's meant to lull you into complacency. It's very effective at that. If not, then The Simpsons will get you, or SpongeBob will get you before you even get into high school and destroy your ability to rationalize or be concerned. Or now it's even worse. You got Spider-Man and the Hulk and the rest of them throwing the pro-nuclear down your children's necks. So potassium-40 is equal to 71 10 millionths of a curie per gram. And a curie is 37 billion atoms, 37 billion explosions a second, times 88. There's over 4 trillion explosions. I'm sorry, let me do the math. Oh, we got to keep getting through, but so it's 88 times 37 billion. 88 curies in a gram. Potassium has 0.00071 10 millionths curie per gram. 71 10 millionths. So divide 71 10 millionths into 88 curies. And you see how, so potassium, everything in your body uses it. It's natural. You need it. Everything on the planet has potassium, everything. It's completely harmless and innocuous, right? So a gram of potassium can't contaminate anything. A gram of man-made radiation will contaminate 1,000 square miles with 104 curies. So less than a gram of strontium-90, which is just as bad as cesium, because in your bones mutates your bone cells for 300 years. At least you get to live to 300 years, Dana. Okay. This is alleged Chernobyl fallout. I showed you Fukushima. It's 20 days, the whole planet's covered. 104 curies is less than a gram of strontium-90. Cesium, potassium rather, it has no right to be in this equation.
Potassium, which is also a kind of radiation. So you are
exposed
eating
to radiation. Well, you're not, because potassium-40, which is what they're talking about, is 71/10 of a curie.
On a daily basis.
No, you're not.
Such radiation. So, radiation...
You can't bioaccumulate potassium. Potassium's homeostasis. Right? You can't bioaccumulate any more than your body's going to use up daily. It's good for you. You can't live without it.
That happens in nature is 2.4, the millisievert, which is 2004.
You can't equate Mother Nature radiation with anthropogenic man-made radiation. You can't conflate them together. Let me explain that very quick. So, if you increase potassium, nothing happens. If you increase radiation, you end up with these statistics like in Japan of 865,000 extra cancers in the first year. That's not because of more potassium. That's because Fukushima came and called them.
400 microsievert. Of course, it differs from locality to locality. For instance, for Iran, I forgot, in a certain district in Iran, 10 millisievert. It was close to 10 millisievert. It's about, or more than 4 times.
You got it backwards. It's 4 millisieverts.
The average for the whole world.
It's natural, though. It's harmless and innocuous and benign. You're not going to see more cancers because of that.
So, depending on the location or the country,
this is nuclear meltdowns. Like this, it's so horrific that this is what he put on a pedestal, but that's what he done.
It varies. In close to the mines, for instance, the level will be higher. And when...
Like, you can't compare this to Fukushima. Go ahead. But
when there's a higher altitude, of course, you're closer to the outer space, so the radiation level would be higher.
It's the same propaganda for 80 years, right? And every student, when they graduate, are required to go out and get that on video at least once.
But on the average, on the world average, it is 2.4. But there are variations from locality to locality, location to location. Now, 100 millisievert is the maximum allowable, the level for the workers at the nuclear power plants, meaning that, simply put, there will be almost no negative effect on the human health.
Well, that's a relief. I'm sure there's a lot of homeless are pretty happy to hear that. So, yeah, when you see these kind of connotations, it's Fukushima disaster is beyond a cover-up. Japan's government thinks they can get away with tricking the masses about the extent of the problem. Officials in TEPCO cannot be trusted. They are lying to the camera, and the camera's happy to regurgitate it.
What happens at a higher level of exposure in terms of human beings? What is the fatality? At what exposure would it...
To that level.
Do that again, I'm sorry.
What happens at a higher level of exposure in terms of human beings? What is the fatality? At what exposure would a human die? For example, a 50% fatality, 4 sievert, 4,000 millisievert.
So, that's interesting. He's being honest here. 4 sieverts, 50% will die. The other 50 will die a few hours later, by the way. 50%.
4 million microsievert. This would kill...
If it kills you and it kills him, if it kills this guy and this guy, you're dying within an hour or two.
50% of the people without any medical care. So after 60 days, 50%...
Outside of a few days. Let me go back and
million
start
microsievert. This would kill.
Because I need to chop that one out. I'll turn my mic off, get it out of the way. We'll just listen to this for a minute.
To that level.
What happens at a higher level of exposure in terms of human beings? What is the fatality? At what exposure would a human die? For example, a 50% fatality for sievert, 4,000 millisievert, 4 million microsievert. This would kill 50% of the people without any medical care. So after 60 days, 50% would die at that level.
That's quite the question, right? We know what the answer to that's going to be. I just want to put that in my holy shit pile for later.
But at a lower radiation, for example, there is some symptoms. At what radiation would there be symptoms? 1 sievert, 1,000 millisievert or 1 million microsievert. At that level, you would start to feel symptoms yourself. At the first time, there will be vomiting. Nausea and vomiting would be felt as a symptom for the first level, which means below that level, there would be no symptoms. At an even lower dose,
now, there may not be no symptoms for a few hours, but it's definitely going to be showing up. Because you're breathing it in, right? It's not going away.
250 millisievert, 250 milli, or 250,000 micro. At that level or below, then even with blood testing, you would detect nothing.
Well, that's not true. Every atom that's in your body, and shouldn't be used in millisieverts, and when you're talking about fine particulates, should be in becquerels, right? So when a single atom gets in your body, and say a millisievert, a microsievert, there's 1 million microsieverts in a sievert. That's what they're talking about is a sievert. And now they're down to 250 sieverts, which is 250,000 microsieverts. Multiply it by 750, because it takes around 750. And we're lowballing it, by the way. Man-made anthropogenic atoms to, say, equal a microsievert. And so multiply that by 250,000. So imagine that each one of them, your body attacks it with white blood cells every second for the rest of your life. So your immune system is compromised. It's catastrophic, eh? It's a doomsday machines. And remember, reactor 4 blew up that day, or within 24 hours of that press conference, let's put it that way. A doomsday-like radiation, if the fire in the pool at Unit 4 would be a global catastrophe. Excuse me. It's a shitty job I got, eh? Always bad news. Nobody fucking likes me. Outside of rational people. So, clearly reactor 4 didn't go. The media said so. Ow. I take that off my ears for a few seconds here. My big old ears, they're hurting. I used to wearing headphones. We've been wearing them 3 days now. Doomsday-like radiation released if there's a fire in the pool at Unit 4. Well, I can't see no fire. Anybody see any fire over there? Stupid to think there's a fire over there. There are friggin' idiot, Dana. I know. I hear you. Fire. I'll fire you. Just bear with me for 1 second. I try to get myself in the right position. Right about there. All right. So, when you look at reactor 4, which is right here, now this was a 190-foot building. Do you think there's anything left inside that stump that's useful that you could sell in a garage sale, maybe, or something like that? Say it wasn't radioactive. Say it wasn't like 9 reactor cores melting down at the one time in that building. And my battery's dying, I guess, in my Geiger counter. I got one there. I can swap it out. It means I went to another dimension. I would imagine that's my battery's dying, because that battery's got to be 4 months old or something.
250 millisievert and above causes leukocytopenia, loss of white blood cell. With blood testing you would see leukocytopenia. But if it is below 250 millisievert, there is no symptoms, and even with blood testing...
There's no symptoms, everything's good. Have a nice day. You'll come again. Thank you very much.
There will be no change in the white blood cell count. However, let's say 200 millisievert. If you are irradiated at that level, there would be health issues. That is, there will be increase in cancer causes.
Well, there's heart problems, liver problems, lung problems. Respiratory cancer is usually latent too, like everything else. Like if you're in that environment, you're not getting... If you get 200 millisieverts, you're the luckiest guy that year. You're talking about multiple reactors detonated. Multiple. And the fuel itself landed back on the site, no longer in water. Like all the reactors are disease factors because the fuel in the pool is splitting atoms. So it boils off about 120,000 liters. You're not going there and working. Your organs melt. But don't worry, don't let the truth get in the way here. Where am I? What am I supposed to be doing here? Getting better at this. There's no hard cases though, right? I wouldn't tell you a lot.
250 millisievert. And above causes leukocytopenia, loss of white blood cell. With blood testing you would see leukocytopenia. But if it is below 250 millisievert, there is no symptoms, and even with blood testing, there will be no change in the white blood cell count. However, let's say 200 millisievert. If you are irradiated at that level, there would be health issues. That is, there will be increase in cancer causes.
He's talking about you going in and getting an X-ray kind of a dose. Eh? He's not talking about being in a nuclear wasteland where there's nuclear meltdowns.
Above 100 milli, there will be a higher risk of cancer incidence. 100 milli to 250 milli. It means that in terms of blood testing or in terms of symptoms, there is no change. However, in terms of future risk of cancer, there will be a higher risk of incidence of cancer in the future. Now, 100 millisievert. At 100 milli, what will be the increased risk of cancer? 0.5% higher risk. So 0 not rising to 0.5, but in terms of the Japanese people, we have the highest occurrence of cancer. Japanese has the highest incidence of cancer because we live the longest.
Yeah, well, not anymore. Just imagine what kind of soulless creature you got to be to say stuff like that. These are huge doses. Like a microsievert is considered a big dose from a nuclear accident. And there's 1,000 microsieverts in a millisievert, and people were getting like 87 millisieverts. And they're like, no, you're so good. You live
so it's because of aging. Cancer is aging after all. Woman lives until 86. Man lives until 80. The average is...
Yeah, but you never had multiple nuclear meltdowns before. You didn't have to pretend the buildings are existing to keep that lie alive yet. Right? When the reactors blow up, what they're talking about is not very helpful. It's blatant lies is what you're listening to.
83 years old, Japan's longevity is the longest. Cancer
but they never
is
had
because of longevity. I can't delve too much in cancer, but after all, Japanese sees the highest incidence of cancer. 50% of Japanese people, 1 out of 2 in Japanese does see cancer. 60% of men will suffer from cancer at any rate.
Yeah, because of 80 years of emissions from the nuclear industry into the environment. You got 56 reactors there with fuel pools hemorrhaging into the environment all year long, all day, every second. And every year you're putting more fuel in the fuel pool, you have more atoms being released, right? We're talking Fukushima. Don't forget that. It's Fukushima. It's 36 reactor cores released in a short period of time. And the stuff that he's talking about at the Foreign Press Club.
Therefore, in terms of background,
he's at the Foreign Press Club, right? And the Foreign Press Club is supposed to regurgitate that story. His whole life has been about that moment. That's the shining moment of his life. He was just a little inbreed, handsome little inbreed in Japan, like the rest of them. Gets a cushy job in the nuclear industry because of his family tree. And when something happens, his job is to take one for the team. And to hell with the country, to hell with the people, to hell with the water, the species, to hell with it. His job is to do exactly that. What he's doing is despicable. It's unconscionable. And it never stopped. It never slowed down. The evilness never took a break. While he was selling out everybody, other professors and diplomats were, Fukushima's going to go on for infinity, I'm afraid. It'll never be resolved. Well, you lost so much in the original explosions. Once you get into that territory, you can't do anything. You got fuel particulates everywhere. They ran through 16,000 homeless in just a short period of time. They were jacking them off the streets.
In terms of background, there is 50% of cancer incidence among the Japanese population. So this rises to 55% at 100 millisievert. This is what it means by 0.5% increase. So a 200 millisievert will cause one...
it is a cover-up, what he's doing there. He's good at telling that lies. He's practiced it. He broke out the envelope, refreshed his memory, and he was happy to do it.
So it's a linear increase. So it rises to 55% from a start of 50%. Therefore, there is an increased risk of cancer.
He's hiding his throat, he's hiding his vulnerable.
So correction, 50% rises to 50.5%. Correction, not 50 rising to 55%. By the way, with CT scanning, because Japan has the largest number of CT, it would be easily 100 millisievert with a CT scan. In case of...
There was 500 hospitals around the world ready to take radiation victims. Remember that story?
Medical irradiation, there is a gain. There is a gain. So there is no limitation if there is a medical benefit, a medical gain. Therefore,
wow. There is no medical gain
for the local workers on the site. For the workers on the site, it is above 100 milli, 106 milli.
For the victims that are going to the site, you can't do nothing on that site. There's nobody hanging around on that site. Good God, man. You had reactor 3 explode and dump non-reactor cores, one of the plutonium mixed oxide reactor. These are full reactor cores all over that site. You really think workers are going... But that's the official cover story, and it's just... And so they never, ever intended to do anything. They never intended to mitigate it. They just let it go into the Pacific, wash it, all the water, wash everything out into the Pacific. Nothing was in tanks. The tanks were built to trick you, just like they're doing right here.
Has been observed, and this person has been hospitalized, but the reason is just because there is no other place to take. In terms of symptoms, there is no symptom, and blood tests will not show. The operator is doing fine, but there is nowhere else to take that person, so that person was taken to the hospital. But if it is more than 100, in terms of the legal limit of 100, it was beyond 100 milli. And therefore, yesterday, the Ministry of Health, Labour and Welfare raised it to 250 milli from 100 into...
For the workers. So everything's good. We'll just keep raising the limit till we run out of people, damn it. Radioactive iodine found in 50% of the children's thyroid. Up to 35,000 microsieverts, 35,000 times 750 atoms, each of them pulsing energy at the speed of the light. Each of them capable of making a tumor or triggering an autoimmune illness or a disease or deficiency. All of them together is guaranteed, as you'll see. They're crazies, eh?
In terms of the legal terms, without changing the limit, no one can work on the site. This is already reported, but on the site...
Nobody can work on the site. Right, because yesterday or the day before, remember they were talking about the NRC. One of the reporters were asked them, was the International Atomic Energy Agency, the NRC. We have links below the video to the NRC's website to 4.3 million emails. You got to realize... That's always there. I'm always here. I'm not perfect. Never going to be perfect. I struggle every day, but I show up and I go to war. And we are at war. They are at war against you. That is evidence of war against humanity right there. And the evidence that is happening and happened is right here. It's true, 70% of the Japan territory is polluted. So think about that. Every time you have a typhoon, the whole country, or at least 70% of the country that they emit to, is washing radiation out into the Pacific. That's how it works.
On the premises, I think it was between Unit 1 and Unit 3 per hour, 400,000 sievert.
400,000 sievert. That was actually true. Hang on a second. Because there was whispers, remember? I'll find it. 400,000 sieverts. It's true nobody's on the site. And it's true there was over 400,000 sieverts between reactor 1 and reactor 3. That's the only honest thing I've heard in 3 fucking days. I know where this is to. Okay, hang on. Focus. I'll get it. I'm on the trail now. We're there. We're right there. I'll find it. There's a lot of revelations. Bananas. Wait for it. Up to 1 million sieverts outside of the Fukushima 1 containment vessel. Still too hot to attempt to measure other areas. And number 1 melted down within 50 minutes of the cooling stopped before the tsunami came ashore. Melted pile of fuel in 3.5 hours. Well, it doesn't melt into a pile, it goes deep into the earth, or it blows up, and it blew up, as you've seen. The fuel pools were gone right away.
On the premises, I think it was between Unit 1 and Unit 3, per hour, 400,000 sievert.
Right, and so he's going to change his mind in a second. But there was recorded over 1 million sieverts at that same time.
Which is 0.4 sievert, has been detected on the premises.
So he meant to say 400 microsieverts, despite the fact that we know it was over 1 million. So that would be acceptable, an accurate number.
Which is 0.4 sievert, has been detected on the premises. This is
really 0.4 sieverts have been detected on the premises. Did anybody bother mentioning they had a catastrophic 36 reactors blow up by that moment that he's sitting there? Imagine being in his boots, though. Yeah, you might have a nuclear meltdown. You got to come out and lie. But holy shit, 36. Because he knows the fuel pools are gone. He knows there's around 30. He knows there's 35 reactor cores are gone. Because the top of the buildings had decades of reactor cores stored in them, right?
And if, in terms of what we know about the capacity, about how many fuel rods would likely be inside that reactor, what sort of quantity are we talking about radioactivity?
I've heard different numbers ranging from 2 to 15 reactor cores worth. No, 2 to about 8 reactor cores worth.
So if it can't be controlled, that's worst case scenario, 8 reactors worth of radioactivity.
Right. Right.
And it would be released into the atmosphere.
By the way, the fact that this has happened at unit number 4 is understandable and is consistent with the theory that it really did dry out because the fuel from the unit number 4 was most recently discharged.
Well, there's reactor 4 to the right. It didn't look like that but ultimately you can see it did dry out. Same thing with reactor 3. Which is right alongside of it to the left, and here's another shot of that day. The fuel pools are at the very top of the buildings, and so are the reactor cores. That's Medusa. There's no one working in this environment. Whoever took that with a telescopic lens, or that was a drone or something, flew in and then got the pictures and flew out again. This is a feeble attempt for the world population not to stop. It can't change Fukushima. Like the problem was many, right? So when you think about what it's like inside the buildings, there's nothing going to be working. When the tsunami comes in there, it comes swinging, and it's at hundreds of miles per hour.
Per hour. This has been detected on the premises. If you spend 10 hours, that's 4 sievert, which means 50%, 1 in 2 would die. And therefore, it is true that at least
1 in 2 would die.
Per hour. This has been detected on the premises. If you spend 10 hours, that's 4 sievert, which means 50%, 1 in 2 would die. And therefore, it is true that at least on the premises, a very high level of radiation has been detected. It could be easily 100 millisievert if you...
Again, he's all over the place, eh? So when they talk about 50% of the people would die, the other 50 will die within an hour or 2 or 3 or 4. You know, radiation doesn't care your age, your race, your religion, your ideology, your health, or anything else. It melts your organs. It kills you. It sees you as the enemy, and it's very good at what it does. And so, and then the problem with telling the lies they're telling was it makes it possible for stuff like this to happen because everybody's confused, right? Radioactive cesium in a cereal was at 20 becquerels per kilogram, for instance. They're dumping the radiation into the Pacific at nighttime. Tokyo was buried in heavy radiation. I mean, buried. And Tokyo had so much radiation accumulated, they were burning it. They were shipping it right across the prefectures of the entire country. But it looks like they attacked the children on purpose. And so they have permanent lab rats to study for decades if they survive. Japan's radioactive children will be fine. Thyroid glands only emitting 35 millisieverts. That's probably this guy there. Anything under 100 millisieverts is not dangerous. That sounds vaguely familiar, don't it?
Keep the legal limit. No one would be able to work on the site, and therefore 250 milli it has been raised to 250 milli. That was inevitable. However, it starts from 100 milli. So if it reaches 250 millisievert, there will be increased risk of cancer. And in terms of leukocyte, it will start to go down in terms of white blood cell count. And therefore, the dose limit had to be raised. So
Therefore, those limits had to be raised. We never had no choice. We had to do it. 2 and 2 is 4, right? A study claimed Tokyo newborns have safe 1,140 microsievert thyroid doses. Only counted food and water, did not include inhaled radioactivity, did not include the first 10 days when iodine and other short-lived isotopes peaked. So they're only talking about 1.1 millisieverts, not holy shit amount of millisieverts, and it didn't include what you should normally include because they would end up with a huge number. So like a millisievert is a big deal. That's what I'm trying to say to you.
in that regard, the workers are exposed to serious issues. 800 workers are close to the vicinity. According to a report, 70 individuals already has been exposed more than the limit, which means that they can no longer work on the premises.
You can't work on that premises. The women in the communities were losing their hair. Their teeth were falling out. Their hair was falling out. As they're lying to you that it's totally safe, they were preparing to abandon Tokyo.
I mean, there is 730 workers who can still work. Each and every person will have to drop out after reaching the dose limit, and those who have dropped out reaching to the limit, they are already facing.
So this is the fantasy, oh shit plan he rolled out. He memorized it by the sounds of it. Hang on there. That was really there you go, this headline. Authorities hid the plume forecast to avoid evacuation. So what they're doing there is they're avoiding evacuation.
Facing a higher risk of a future cancer. It's only the risk. It's only the risk. As I said,
And what exactly is the risk, though? The risk is, how come they gotta lie so friggin' much? Makes my job brutal. Children with over 11 becquerels a kilogram of cesium start to see heart problems. How many lies have they told in this video? Holy shit. We're only 20 minutes in. That's disgusting.
50% goes to 50.5% or 51%, but it is true that now they are carrying a heavier risk of cancer in the future, and they drop out.
Well, the problem with anthropogenic man-made radiation is it's 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. And if that's because it went through a chain reaction. So this is catastrophic in nanoparticles. Yeah, and what it does is it's pulsing energy. Think each atom is pulsing energy almost at the speed of light. So think about you're in a car, you're going almost the speed of light, and you put your arm out the window, what happens? Well, let's scale it all the way down to your cells. So when your cells get hit by something at the speed of light, it damages them. So does your chromosomes and your DNA. But it's going to do this every second. It's going to be pulse of energy every second. Every second. Destroying your chromosomes.
So, for the health, the damages, health effect on the workers is quite the significant, but
no damage to the workers. So they're trying, this is the official cover story, I guess the International Atomic Energy Agency, this is one of their little teacher's pets, so to speak. Just terrible, despicable people to take that job. Can you imagine what kind of bizarre creature you got to be to have that job? What kind of monster you actually got to be to get that job? What kind of sadistic fucking demon you got to be to get that job? Let me think about this. There we go. The mentally disabled are working at Fukushima, forced to go to the nuclear meltdowns, and are treated like disposable people.
Putting that aside, what you are most interested would be what is happening in the local community and what is happening in Tokyo, and especially perhaps you are more interested in what would happen in Tokyo. Now, perhaps you have received the black colored paper as a handout.
Tokyo was getting hammered.
I have not the one copy myself, but I have been given a photocopy of the flip being used in a television program, looking at the environmental radiation, the dose. Of course, so this changes from on every second. That is to say, every hour, and
the doses in Tokyo are changing every hour. It's just absurd, isn't it? These are just horrific creatures that are destroying the 8 million species. All the whales are emaciated because creatures like this actually exist.
Also, with a change in the wind direction, it changes. But at the maximum, it is 1, as you can see.
Potassium doesn't it?
At the maximum, 1 microsievert per hour, that is.
You're getting more than that in Tokyo, 240 kilometers away, for goodness sakes.
And this dose. How much is it? 1 microsievert per hour. I mentioned about the health effect, the 100 millisievert, that would have a negative effect. It would take 11 years with this level of 1 microsievert per hour. It would take 11 years.
Wow, a sadistic little demon, eh? I go back a little tiny bit. That's
also with a change in wind direction, 1 microsievert per hour.
1,000 millisievert.
I mentioned
one microsievert per hour.
About the health effect, the 100 millisievert, that would have a negative effect. It would take 11 years with this level of 1 microsievert per hour. It would take 11 years. So with the radiation dose right at this moment in time, if it continues for 11 hours, then you will reach the 100 millisievert, which may be a level that may give you a negative health effect.
You can't get on the site to test out that theory.
And having said so, now 1 microsievert per hour. So you have the hourly dose, and you also have the cumulative dose, the total exposure dose. Perhaps you need to make a distinction between the two.
Well, there's two different ways. We're talking about the people that are at the site. And it's such a terrible, just an unbelievable thing to say.
And having said so, now 1 microsievert per hour. So you have the hourly dose, and you also have the cumulative dose, the total exposure dose. Perhaps you.
So all we're trying to do is challenge the laws and say, well, you can't work there first off to get that dose because your organs will melt because you're going to get too big of a dose. You can't be in proximity of the site because of the explosions, right? They drop the payloads of the multiple reactors all over the site. Let me just bring them back down with me here. So we got them to refer to, because there's nothing better than good old facts. Good old facts works every time. So there's multiple reactors. At this point, this is day 4. Or this is the 16th. Hang on, I'll figure it out. I need that other picture that we were using earlier. Here we go. So you have 4 of these reactors done basically the same thing. They lost their entire inventories. And that covered the entire planet. And they decided to cover it up. And that's what we're looking at there, is the cover up. And these people, that's what they do, they cover up. They conflate it with potassium when it has nothing to do with anthropogenic man-made radiation. They increase the absurd, almost 1 million extra cancers in the first year. Not everybody gets cancer, or heart problems, liver problems too. There's all kinds of other illnesses and diseases. Cancer is typically latent. We're only in day 6. The reactors are still looking like that right there. What's left of them.
Need to make a distinction between the two.
So you can't say
For example,
tiny doses.
you have 100 millisievert, assuming that you are exposed in one instant or in an hour, 1 hour. And in just 1 hour. And if you reach that level in 11 years' time, it's very different. For instance, in a Four Seasons hotel, for instance, where you have...
where IAEA and them are too. In Tokyo, well, I guess they're gone towards Osaka.
Need to make a distinction between the two. For example, you have 100 millisievert, assuming that you are exposed in one instant or in an hour, 1 hour. And in just 1 hour. And if you reach that level in 11 years' time, it's very different. For instance, in a Four Seasons hotel, for instance.
I think he's talking about 11 hours, right? It's lost in translation. So, say you didn't die that day, the extreme increase in mortality caused by cardiac diseases in Fukushima. The death rates might give the creeps to some people. Heart attacks were up 12.5%, 12,700 extra people compared to the same month before. There was an extra 2,000 people die of blood cancers. So the cardiac disease was up 14.6%. Deaths were up 12.5%.
Where you have the hot water that comes very constantly, and you will be able to fill in just 3 minutes the bathtub. And I nod off often. I often open the water tap, but then I nod off, and I forget that water is running, and then it fills and overfills the bathtub. But that is only for 1 instant. But what is the cumulative effect? When it happens in 11 years, after 11 years, and then you reach the 100 millisievert, it means almost negligible health effect. So, for those of...
There be no adverse health effect at all. Well, that's good because their children have gotten sick at home. 45% of the kids in Fukushima survey had thyroid exposures to radiation up to 50,000 microsieverts per year, equivalent for a 1-year-old. So the thyroid is producing the hormones that are going to regulate the development and function of the baby's development, right? And so getting this dose in their body, all these atoms, anthropogenic man-made atoms, this is like they're far away. They're not getting neutron bombardments from Fukushima. They are, but they're getting it through radioactive fallout. They're breathing it in, they're drinking it. It's in every cycle of their life. They can't escape it. The dust in the air is full of it. The industry
you who are living in Tokyo,
evil.
What may be the health effect for you? I don't think you have to be worried at all.
Well, there's 865,000 extra cancers in the first year.
You who are living in Tokyo, what may be the health effect for you? I don't think you have to be worried at all, because I myself have done nothing, for example. You don't need to wear a mask. You don't need to take the shower frequently. You don't need that. Now, but what is happening in the local community around the Fukushima nuclear power plant? You're not allowed to go inside the 20 kilometers radius. And from 20 to 30 kilometers radius, you're supposed to have to stay indoors, and not go outside. Now, what may be the dose there? Of course, it would change with time.
The dose there is radioactive fallout. And it doesn't change, because when you talk about changing, it's because there's an incredible, think of a forest fire, and you have all this smoke for 4, 5, 6, 7 days. This is the same thing, except the The smoke is pulsing energy at the speed of light and attacks everything with replicating cells forever. It wipes out the biota, the microscopic species, the bacteria, the fungus, and everything else in between it. Let's keep it rolling.
But the latest data is when it is more. It is 100 microsievert per hour. It is so, in often cases 10 to 20 the microsievert per hour.
And I apologize that I keep stopping, but we're forced to challenge each law. Not enjoying it. It's when you look at the building, it's absurd to suggest anybody's getting tiny doses like.
So when you look at the hot water, how the hot water is running, that is very slow. But this is for outdoors only.
You can't conflate radiation with hot water, which is radiant, is what he's doing. It's despicable.
If you measure outdoors, it is 10 to 20 microsievert per hour. Indoors, it is 1/10 in most cases.
So shelter in place.
So in the local community, if you're staying indoors, and
if you stay indoors when you finally, they were supposed to run away. They didn't want dead people in the roads because the industry wouldn't be able to blame that on the tsunami or the earthquake, right? Without the water or debris. It'd be just dead people in the cars, dead people in their homes. And so the whole world would go nuts with a story like that. And that would be the death knell for this disgusting parasite industry known as nuclear. Let me get rid of. So this was the cover story to stop people, because the radiation that was falling was this stuff. Each flake bringing down Fukushima, the city of 300,000. The industry controls the universities, the media. There was dissenting voices originally. Absolutely. We're seeing that tonight. This is what he's doing. He's confusing the public, right?
Sometimes the monitoring is done inside the car, inside the vehicle. But if you would measure indoors, it is 1/10 the level. So if you are in an evacuation center, or if you are indoors in your house, it would be 1 microsievert per hour inside the house, which is almost comparable to the level in Tokyo. So as long as you stay indoors, then there will be.
So there was sieverts going through. We covered it in a different audit. I meant to chop that video and I screwed up, so I might have to listen to that again. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Here we go. My apologies. Oh, I screwed it up. Oh, I got that filler on. There we go. So, in my playlist, I have audited Harvard, MIT, and Stanford University recently. And if you go watch the Harvard, and there's links below the video, you don't have to listen to me. You'll hear him talking about lethal doses 10 kilometers away of up to 10 sieverts going through the communities. And so this was all happening. The government was coming out, I have no doubt whatsoever, in correlation with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission in the United States, with France, because they're dependent upon nuclear so much, Britain, wants to be. But certainly the International Atomic Energy Agency member countries were making the decisions in the background to what Japan's response should be each day. Right? Everything was structured through that venue, the Foreign Press Center in Japan, that the journalists were dependent upon to regurgitate what narrative they wanted to go worldwide. His is the narrative. It's a terrible narrative. But the idea of doing what we're doing is to point out how evil this industry actually is that had done that. And then, because we have the luxury of hindsight, they had the luxury of knowing, not needing hindsight. They knew at the time everything I'm saying would come true. And I'm trying to provide you with as much documentation as my poor little fingers can do. Which I think done pretty darn good. Still got 30 minutes left. My ears are hurting. We're 2 hours in. I'm going to give it up and be happy with that we pulled off a 2 hour on time. I'm waiting for hours. I had everything ready hours ago. Now I got to, because we got a few days off, I had the screw up and running today, thank goodness. Wouldn't start. Get that up and running. Filled up the radiator in the truck, and it didn't need very much. I'm not sure why it lost any, so I got to figure that out, but it was nothing obvious. Need some fresh snow on the ground or something. Then I'll go out and spot it where it's snowing, if it's happening. Which I can't, it doesn't seem like it is. And so I got a few, I'm not coming back until Sunday unless something happens. I might not even come back Sunday. That's like 5 days. I don't know if do anybody really think I can take 5 days off? What the hell am I going to do for 5 days? That's the big question. I have all this work already gathered up on me. As it is now, I can't keep up with it. Madness. And then the news cycle each day, I was looking for dead whales and dead seals and abnormalities and everything else today. Last night I was like, oh crap, I got to keep you got so much you got to keep on top of, because a 24-hour cycle means exactly that. In 24 hours you won't be able to make it back to whatever came through yesterday if you don't stay on top of it, right? It's a brutal. Hopefully it pays off I've been doing it for a long time, but hopefully, we're catching the trends as they're happening and stuff like that. On top of that, I gotta remember to change my battery on my Geiger counter. She's flat-lined. That's either a real bad thing or it's just a dead battery. I'm gonna put it past the industry to irradiate me, see? All right, let's get back to here, there, and everywhere. So if you don't like me, give me a thumbs up. I almost got you. If you like me, give me a thumbs up. If you're going to celebrate New Year's tomorrow, give us a thumbs up. You should celebrate it. It's a new year. It's a new opportunity to beat the shit out of the nuclear industry. Stomp their guts out. There really should be a death penalty at some point in the future, or they should be put in a capsule, shot into the sun or something. They can only eat Kraft dinner with no butter, no milk. And they can only drink water from the tanks. And let's find a sound. James busy tonight. He's got a let's He's got 499 videos. So he's waiting for the best he can work out for his number 500. Trust me, exactly what's going on there. It's pretty awesome. Looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to flushing out the rest of the nuclear industry's official story, because this story is what the whole cover story is based upon. Right? There's variations, right? But this is the International Atomic Energy Agency had this packaged, right? They went through it with the chicken actor from whatever university he's from, I can't remember. I got his names below. But he had to come out, and he knew, right? There's a heavy weight on his shoulder. And he wanted to be remembered as being Mr. Calm, how he was just playing with his neck. He was hiding the cord of the microphone going to his ear, most likely, because he didn't have wireless back then, right? He was trying to hear what they were saying in his ear. And they being the International Atomic Energy Agency and his boss at the university, no doubt. Is it possible the entire nuclear industry is so evil for so long that Earth's ability to now sustain life is ending? If you go to my playlist and look at my die-off videos, you might get it. Yeah, day 5404, Kevin. Hi, Kevin. Hello, everybody. And I'm going to play a cheery song for the closing song tonight. I like the nuclear exceptionalism a little bit too much. It's a fantastic story. And you can hear it right here, right now. Have a great night. We'll see everybody on Sunday, hopefully. Take care, everybody.
They said it was clean, too cheap to meter. Built the dome, then cooked the beaker. Said the rod was safe as sealed in drums, but left them leaking out of Idaho slums. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. They chase the sun, all fusion proud. Ignore the barrels stacked in clouds. Promise stars in every socket, while curium settled in the market. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. Chart is clean, while whales rolled up beside the submarine. Blame the algae, blame the rain, but never trace the gamma chain. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear's not dumb. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear is fun. Hallelujah, being anti-nuclear has won. Hallelujah, nuclear exceptionalism is done. Now the rods are rusting, the record spins. Mama warned them, too many sins. Keep your son, keep your lab coat pride, till you fix the waste you tried to hide.